Okay, so we have talked about using the area or the room objects to color our floor plans. So here we're using sort of building intelligence to color the floor plans. What if you don't want to have to do that? So if you want to sort of just manually color the floor plans on your own, so what I'm going to do here is turn off the scheme here. So now I'm just going to show you how you can sort of manually color the drawings using the filled region tool. So on the Annotate tab, we have the region tool, which we talked about last week. It's not the masking region, it'll be a filled region. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a filled region type that uses solid hatch, that is transparent. So in your filled region list, you'll find solid black, so that's a solid black hatch. What we're going to do is edit it and duplicate it. So I'll call this warm gray transparent. So I'm making a new filled region style, starting with the solid black style. So I've duplicated it. So now what I need to do is change it to be not opaque, but transparent. And then I need to go find the color for it. So out of my Pantone colors here, I'll go find the warm grays here. And there we are. So now, if I were to throw this over my drawing, and you could just use the pick tool with invisible lines. So this way we don't see the boundary of the hatch. So if I just wanted to, hatch my slab area, I could just use the pick tool and go around the outside of my building. I'm trying to get the wall line here for the curtain wall. Oh, there it was. And tabbing till I get the curtain wall line. Good grief. There it is. Okay, and provided that this is a closed, valid sketch, I should be just about good to go here. So instead of coloring my floor plan intelligently, I'm doing it the old-fashioned way. There. So now I get that tone everywhere, and it'll print just as you see. So you want to make sure that you don't make it opaque, because if you do that, this is what you get. It would just obliterate everything. So you want a transparent, solid pattern, solid fill, with invisible lines as the boundary. And the reason you want invisible lines is so that you don't see the edges of your fill wherever you place them. So solid, transparent, choose the color you want, and you are good to go. Okay, so that's page 4. On to page 5. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about how you get your project set up for Revit, for rendering. My feeling about the materials dialog box is a little bit dubious. It used to be different, but this is Revit 2013 when they did this to us. The materials dialog box has been made more confusing over the years. So what we're going to talk about here is the Manage tab and then Materials. Manage and then Materials. Now every material that you have in your project has several tabs. Revit calls them assets. These various assets together comprise a single material. So if we look here in the materials dialog box, I'm going to look for brick, B-R-I-C-K. So the materials dialog box, let's just walk around here and what you see. If you type in something into the search box up here, it will show you materials that are in your project that match this name. If you do not put in a search term, Revit lists in the top left here all of the materials currently defined in your project. Now, if you don't see this list at the bottom, click this button right here, which opens up the library browser. So these material libraries at the bottom here are from the software. The ones above here are from my project. So I'm just going to type in brick to narrow down the list, and I'm going to click on brick. All right. So first of all, brick has an identity where you just simply give it a name. And so the description here that you see, brick, comma, common, whatever you put in here is what you see here listed in the project browser. You can right click and rename it if you so desire. So for each Revit material, we have a graphics tab. So this graphics asset is basically its hatch when seen in elevation and its hatch when seen in plan or in section. Now I recommend that every hatch that you see in Revit, make it 50% gray. Like so. Just makes your drawings read a lot easier. So that's pretty easy to set up. Now, for rendering purposes, we have the appearance asset. So this determines how this Revit material is going to look when it is rendered. So here there's a little kind of a preview scene at the top here where we can kind of see a little preview of how this brick material will render. So each Revit material has a graphics asset that defines its appearance in our working drawings, an appearance asset for how it appears when we render it, and physical and thermal assets which are used by the engineering consultants who might be using Revit. So they're not so important for architectural applications. Now it's the appearance asset that is probably the one that's the hardest to wrap your mind around. And here's how it works. Each Revit material has like a slot. And that slot can contain one of these appearance assets which will define how this Revit material will appear when rendered. So basically, there's a little slot in here that says brick common. Okay, how does this look? Here's the digital picture, the appearance asset. So appearance assets are simply photoshopped pictures of real world materials that tile in all four directions. So in the center of this wall, let me choose a different scene. Now, I don't know if we can, maybe that's not the best one to choose. I wanted to show something where you could very clearly see the pattern repeat. Actually, I'll just do that by drawing a piece of this wall outside. So I'm looking here. I don't know if I can see anything that clearly repeats. But if you were to look at this appearance asset in your building, let's just do that. Let me draw a brick wall outside the envelope of our building here. I'm just going to go up and find some brick. There's some brick right there. Just going to draw chunk of it here and go out and have a look at it in 3D. There it is. So what I'm going to do, you guys probably know about this. In your list of different view types, there's the realistic style, which will kind of show a pre-rendered rendition of your project. Here now we can see it clearly. You guys can see what's repeating: that brick, that brick, that brick, that brick. So here there is a digital picture of bricks that's been photoshopped so that it tiles cleanly in both axes. Now, it's convenient, but it looks a little fake, right? And that's one of the things that you put up with when you're getting into digital rendering. So back to materials here. So this brick's appearance asset, all this is, it's a digital picture of a real world material. Now, for brick, there's lots of different kinds of brick that are out there. And inside the Appearance tab, there's this little button here that allows you to switch from one appearance asset to another. So that means instead of using this digital picture of bricks, let's go find one that looks a little different. So we hit the little box here. And now this takes us into a separate dialog box, which is mentioned on the next page. This is called the Asset Browser. So what we have here is a catalog not of full-on materials. This is a catalog of digital pictures of materials that we can use to define how our Revit material over here, brick common, how it will look when we render it. So if we type in brick as a search term at the top, give it a second here, and Revit shows us all the matches. So these are all the different kinds of brick that are in Revit's library, and these are called appearance assets. And so each appearance asset, all it is like a picture of a material that you can use instead of this red brick. So I'm going to use medium gray brick, and all I got to do is go over to the side here and hit this little double arrow. And what happens is it replaces this appearance asset that makes brick look red with this appearance asset that makes brick look gray. And there you go. So now, in its place, instead of red brick, I get this, well, it's concrete block. Oops. Now, what happened to my old appearance asset? It's actually still here in the project. If I click this and then type in brick again. Now, here you can see there's assets that are already in the document. Then down here, these are these two folders down below. These are from the software. They're not from your project. So if you choose the Autodesk Physical or the Appearance Library, you'd be looking at different kinds of brick appearances that are just that come with Revit itself when you buy the software. But there are some brick appearances in the document, and you can see them here, document assets. So these list these different brick rendered appearances that are already here inside the project. I don't need to get them from outside the project. They are already here. Now, whatever picture you use here, all of these pictures that you see of materials, those pictures aren't actually stored inside your Revit database. They're not. All it is there's a link inside your Revit material that says, hey, go get this picture of brick from here. This location is actually on your hard drive. It's like deeply buried inside a whole bunch of folders, blah, 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 blah. So if you're bringing in one of these appearance assets from outside the project or using one of the ones that's inside the project, they're both still pointing to this same digital picture of brick that gets installed when you install Revit anyway. So no biggie. So again, I'm going to go and try a different color of brick. type in brick at the top. I don't want concrete block this time. So I'm going to go to masonry, brick, and find brown weave. Okay.
Can you scale the brick?
Yes. Yes, you can. Look at that herringbone style, man. Oh boy, the 70s called. Let's send the 70s back. There we go. Some lovely yellow brick. Great. Okay, so this is an appearance asset. So for each one of our Revit materials, like I said, an asset is like a slot. So you have your material, and this material has the graphics asset, which is your hatches, and then you have the appearance asset, which is just a slot which defines which JPEG or bitmap is being used. So these appearance assets, in turn, these can refer to a huge other library of appearance assets that ship with the software out of the box. So Revit has all these out-of-the-box appearance assets that are here in the software. They might not be in your project, but you can see that when you go to the appearance tab, you hit that little button there with the blue and the white paper there. You can go and grab one of the other many appearance assets that ship with software, and as soon as you pick one of them, it gets slotted into your appearance asset for your Revit material. So you define the hatches, define how it looks when it renders, and there you go. Now, if you're still not happy with the selections that you can get for your appearances in Revit's library, you can start from scratch and build your own appearances for rendering purposes. Now, any of you who do interior design and you want to render the inside of a space with the carpet tile that you got from, say, Milliken Contract or Shaw or one of those other companies that provides carpet or carpet tile, you can go onto their websites and they have all ready to go, perfectly tileable digital pictures of their carpet or their carpet tile that you can use for rendering. So we'll discuss that in the advanced course on how you could bring that stuff into Revit and create an appearance asset from scratch so that you could build your own material library and get beyond the limited list that's already provided in the software. Okay, so lastly here, and then we're going to have the rest of the time to work on our term project. We're just going to talk about rendering. Now, usually, most people will want to render a camera view. So if you want to render your project from a certain vantage point, so here if I want to maybe start from this location at the site and look towards the building. So here what I would do is I'd maybe go to my site plan and I would go to the View tab and grab the camera tool. So View, 3D View drop down and grab the camera tool. And so the first click places the camera. The second click indicates the direction and how far you want to look into your model. Now, don't do this, because this means the camera would not actually see the model. Make sure that your second click is on the other side. Oh, there were trees on the other side. I'd rather look at that. Okay, escape. Camera. Okay, so I'm going to start from here, from the north, and look towards my building. So just get it set up and hit OK. Or click and away we go. So there's the building. Now, if you want to kind of fine tune where the camera is looking, hit the F8 key on your keyboard or Shift W. Either way, it will bring up the steering wheel. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pan upwards here or orbit so that I can basically change my view of what I'm looking at here, so I can maybe change my vantage point or maybe walk a little bit closer to it or what have you. So you can use all these tools to kind of you know, get yourself a little bit closer to the model or farther away, whatever you want. Okay, so here I'm just going to walk a little closer. And then pan the camera, maybe look a little bit. So now that this is set up, I will go to the rendering dialog box, which is the little teapot on the bottom of your screen. It's an interesting story in itself why the teapot is used as a render button. You can Google that. It's an interesting story. The first object ever rendered in a computer was a teapot. Okay, so in this dialog box here, you want to aim for something that's in the 2000 pixel range. So if you render to the screen, it is 72 dots per inch. You probably want to go a little higher than that because you want to sort of hit the 300 dot per inch range. That's kind of, you know, where it keeps it from looking pixelated. So here, if I go up to 300 dots per inch, I'm getting up in towards the 1800 pixel range. So that's good. I might want that to be a little bit bigger. Now you can see its printed size is 6 inches wide by 4.5 tall. Now if you want something that's going to go on a letter-sized sheet, we're probably going to want to bump that up a little bit. So I'm going to exit out of the render dialog box and we're going to work on making this view a little bigger. Now if you click the crop region of your 3D view, on the ribbon you will see size crop. And in the size crop dialog box, you want to switch to scale. Otherwise, if you just do field of view and you start playing with these values with the field of view mode, it basically makes it like you were just dragging those crop handles out. That's not what we were after. So, size crop, so we're choosing scale. And now we're going up to 10 inches so we can more or less get to the width of a letter size sheet. So that makes it bigger. So now when we go back to the render dialog box, hit the little teapot. Now we're up to 3000 pixels. Now for a preliminary rendering, that could take you a little bit of time, so I'm going to drop down to 200 dots per inch. In fact, I can just type it in, 200. So now it's 2000 pixels. For rendering, I recommend the high setting. Best, it takes quite a long time, and with medium, sometimes you get little imperfections in the rendering, so high seems to be a good sort of a medium level of, or a modest amount of quality. And then you'd hit the render button and away you'd go. Now, we're not going to get into the sun settings or any of that stuff here in this course. We get into it in more detail in the advanced course, but you can get in there and play with some of that stuff so you can try and get your sun in the location that you want it. So again, aim for about 2000 pixels and everything is good. Now with Entourage, what this is here, Entourage that you see here on the second half of page 7, if you want to put some entourage into your view, that means like planting and people. Let me just show you how that would work. So I'm going to go up to the roof plan here. So I think we have some planting up on the roof. There's the trees. Where are the trees? Oh, there they are. Okay. Now, if I want to put some people out here so they can kind of look like to be frolicking amongst the trees, if I go to the Insert tab, I'm going to load these guys in. In fact, you'll find them in the Entourage folder in your Families list. Families. Okay, I don't have any loaded. So if you can see in Families, there's nothing for here for Entourage, so I go to Insert, Insert, Load Family. There we go. And I'm going to go to the Entourage folder. So Insert tab, Load Family, Entourage. And we have the RPC male and the RPC female. So I'll control click both of those so they can be brought in. And now you folks will see I have an Entourage folder. So when I expand that, I find my RPC People. And I'm going to draw in Yin Yin. Now, RPC content is a nifty idea that it was invented by not Autodesk, but another company called Arch Vision. I'm going to show you what it is. I'm going to take Yin Yin and drop her here right in front of these trees. Now you can see there's a little arrow. That is the direction she is facing. So I'm going to rotate her so that she's looking outwards. So now that I have her here, I'm going to go to 3D again. And where is she here? Not seeing her. Maybe my Entourage is turned off. No, it is not. Oh, look at that. There she is. She's got Superman powers. Alrighty then. So click her. Pick new host. Plunk her down on my roof slab here. There we go. That's better. Okay, I'm going to isolate her. I'm going to isolate my little 3D person here. And I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to change to realistic mode. Okay, so there is Yin Yin. So what they've done is when they create these RPC people, now I'm trying to figure out why she's being so choppy. Huh, okay. They green screen the person, they take a picture of them with a high resolution camera, and then they move the camera like 30 degrees around the person, and they take another picture, and they go all the way around the person. So they have a whole bunch of high resolution photos of this person, and then in Photoshop they trace her outline, and they have a black and white mask of her or the other RPC object's form. So black is where she is in this black and white document, and then it's white where she is not, or it's the other way around. In any event, the digital picture plus the mask of this area is what creates the cutout. So now, zoom in a little bit here, and you can see what happens as we rotate around this character. Oh, we got a little eyebrow raise there, right? See? And I think at one vantage point, oh, little blink. So there, at one point where the camera was placed, she had her eyes closed for the picture. So the other thing to keep in mind is that when seen from a shallow angle, RPC objects have a high degree of realism. However, remember that they are a cardboard cutout. So you want your camera angle to be relatively low in respect to the subject. So if we zoom out a little bit here and we raise the camera up high, you can see that there's not much to Yin Yin. She's not even skin deep. She's really just kind of a two-dimensional person. Now, not only is that the case for the people, it's also the case for the trees. So if we look at these trees here, I'm going to grab one of those. Same deal, I'm just going to isolate it here. And when we look at it in realistic mode, the tree looks pretty good, and in fact when you orbit around it, it will switch at some point to a different vantage of the tree. So there's not like, 60 pictures of a tree as there is with Yin Yin or any of the other characters that you get out of the Entourage library. With the trees, there's often only 4 pictures of the tree. And again, if your camera is on a high angle, then your tree begins to look like a cardboard cutout as well. So again, try and keep your camera angles relatively low. And also, another warning, with regards to your sun direction, make sure that your sun direction is not coming perpendicularly to your camera's view, because then your sun is going to catch those cardboard cutouts at a very funky angle, and they're not going to cast any shadows. So you kind of want to set it up so that your camera is looking in the same direction, and the sun is more or less behind you, more or less behind the camera, so when it casts that shadow, you have the full width of the tree or the person's shadow being cast. So you do not need to create a rendering for this project, but it's certainly a fun thing to do. And make sure that you do add that to the, if you want, just add it to your term project, and then you can put it on your cover page. Okay, so that's all on this part here. Henry, you got something you want to discuss? Nope.
I think, yeah, so show me how to position the sun again.
Okay, so if you do want to sort of decide where you want your sun to be sitting, here there is a sun icon in your 3D view, and you can see it turns on your sun settings. So this would allow you to pick a location. So here, let's say maybe you want to do a rendering at the summer solstice, and now you need to pick your location. So inside the location dialog box here, switch from internet mapping service to just a city list, so that way you can quickly switch to Vancouver. I'm scrolling down to the bottom here to the V's. Vancouver, 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 BC, Canada. There we are. And daylight saving time, and okay. So now you can choose, here we are, June 21st, 12 p.m., and hit OK. So now that the sun has been set, when we go back to our camera view here, which I think was under 3D views, there it is there, 3D view 1. So there's my location. So now what I need to do is, again, go into my sun settings here and just make sure that we are using still summer solstice, so that's Vancouver, BC, Canada. It remembers what I'd set before, and hit OK. So now, if you render it, you're going to get a rendering from this location, and in our sun settings, still Vancouver, BC, date and time of day, and away you go. Now that sun settings dialog box is also accessible from inside the rendering dialog box. So if I go to rendering here, and so this is the dialog box we mentioned earlier, sun setting, you can also choose it here, and there it is again. So you can get the sun settings dialog box from outside the render dialog box or from within the render dialog box, hit OK, and away we go on the render. Now this would probably take an hour to render. I don't know, it might be as little as 20 minutes, it's hard to say. But this will obviously take a fairly good chunk of time. What will happen is the background, it might go blank or might turn black until the render is far enough along that Revit has something to show you. So within a few seconds here, we would begin to see that render begin to take place in the background. So again, this isn't required for you to do in your term project, but definitely fun to have a quick kick at the can to make it go.